Organizations that don't sell their company in the marketplace have missed out on half the opportunity to hire good talent.
Welcome to Talent Takes, Episode 3. Morgan Layton here, along with
Nick Layton, brother and coworker.
We are 13 years in the executive search industry and 16 now?
16 going on 17.
Yep. So between the both of us, almost 30 years of experience, a lot of war stories, a lot of great things to share. But we're going to go into the topic of passive versus active candidates and why this is a big topic for talent acquisition teams, HR departments, and hiring. So Nick, tell us a little bit about the difference between active and passive candidates and what that means to us.
Well, key difference in the market. An active candidate is somebody that is unemployed today looking rather vigorously for their next opportunity. Creates a lot of different dynamics than a passive candidate, which is somebody that is actively employed today, not actively out looking for another opportunity.
Yeah, and there's a lot of metrics around that information, around those two different ones. I think a really key one is over 70% of the current workforce is considering other opportunities. They're not active, they're passive, but they are open to considering another opportunity if it's positioned to them correctly.
Yep.
And talk a bit about that passive candidate pool, why they're different than the active pool.
Yeah, that's a great point to be talking about in detail today, because the difference is very, very important. The passive candidate is going to be somebody that's sitting in their role today, doing a wonderful job, not particularly drawn to the idea of looking at other opportunities. Those are top-tier employees, usually the folks, high producers, coming out of elite educations, bringing a strong resume if they were actually to kind of poke their head out and say, I'm interested in looking elsewhere. The passive candidate, while may have a wonderful background, may have all sorts of accolades and acumen to come in and be wonderful in a new role, there is a little bit more inherent risk in going after an active candidate due to the fact that their employment is candidly a little bit wishy-washy. They don't know exactly where they want to go. They don't have a cadence to how quickly they want to make a decision. There's a series of factors that ultimately cause more of a risk profile for that hire than a passive candidate.
Yeah, you said it perfectly, but I think it is just the likelihood of the loyalty factor.
Correct.
So this person, whether there is a completely understandable reason for being in the job market or not, the propensity for that person to have a lower loyalty factor is significantly higher.
Correct. And, on a basic level, you have that person potentially talking to other folks too. So you're now in a bit of a competitive shootout situation when it comes to potential offer situations and, getting pushback. Oftentimes this is when you see candidates using this as leverage to actually, go and get a better offer from another offer that they've been receiving in the marketplace. So it creates a dynamic that's less than ideal for the hiring professionals.
Yeah. You mentioned, playing other offers against each other. I've seen this many times in my career, but receiving a counter offer from your current employer, I think there's a lot of metrics around that also. We tend to advise people against taking those offers because within 12 months, oftentimes you still part ways.
Yeah, I think the number percentage-wise is pretty astounding. I think something close to 70% of folks proceed to then go on and take on another opportunity. Part of the science behind that, I believe, is the fact that they've made that emotional conversion. They've said, I've identified enough push factors in my current role that I've determined I'm going to go and find something else. Well, few extra dollars and cents isn't ultimately going to make all of the problems at hand go away. And so they tend to rear their ugly heads a little bit harder the second time.
Yep. So talent acquisition teams are posting these jobs online, on LinkedIn, on Indeed, on job boards, and they're waiting for those active candidates to reach out to them. There are a lot of pitfalls within the talent acquisition traditional approach of posting a job online on Indeed, on LinkedIn, and waiting for those active candidates to come to them. I think one of those main pitfalls is they're not actively selling people on those opportunities, the career aspirations, the motivations of the company, and the career trajectory. And so I want to talk a bit about maybe help some of those TA people out there to understand that you're not messaging appropriately. You're not messaging with a marketing mindset. You are presenting the role, but you're not selling it. And I think that's where a recruiter can come in and, if nothing else, advise a TA individual in that process, but show them firsthand.
No question. I think part of the historical approach to talent acquisition inherently had a bit of gatekeeping involved. The idea that you would be, pretty hard on the first round of candidates, determine who would be the best to move forward. Some of that traditional approach is not received the way it was previously in interviews. The idea that we are going to say, what can you bring to our firm? And the give and take, there's no give. That's not going to create not only a good onboarding process, but you're not going to attract the most qualified or appropriate culture fit candidates. It's a bit of a hope and a prayer strategy, and ultimately what we have advised a lot of our talent acquisition clients on is the idea of selling the role and being part of the team that obviously interviews candidates, but bends their ear strategically at the right time to say, hey, we do a lot of things well. Here's what we do well, and here's how you could help us make it better. And kind of playing off of the emotional piece, because as we all know, leaving a job, taking a new job, very important, very emotional, stressful time in one's life. Why not be part of the camaraderie associated with making a big decision like that and helping an organization through that process?
Yeah, help sell the positive of it.
You got it.
Yeah. So when we are approaching those passive candidates, we're not sending them a static PDF of a job description. We are actively marketing, selling. We are salesmen at a certain point. How do you engage those passive candidates on a very detailed selling, marketing-focused approach?
Great question. The clients that we work with have historically leaned on a lot of outdated processes. What we have provided our clients over the last 30 years plus is a much more contemporary approach to reaching out to candidates. 9 times out of 10, you're going to have your standard recruiter send a profile, as you mentioned, within an email, and you're going to get maybe 1, maybe 2 calls to your voicemail to just see if we can get you to at least take a half-hour call, learn a little bit, and do a bit of a rigmarole. What we have created is a much more strategic approach that gets through some of the firewall. And we have put together mini podcasts like this one. We've put together Folian links, which are online web pages that have a lot of texture and detail, much more salesy, if you will, than your standard PDF, as we go back to. This creates a much higher click rate. Our response rates are much higher. Candidly, candidates are coming to our candidate discussions much more informed because they're not just throwing the PDF in the trash. They're actually going and clicking on and listening to a lot of the different content we create for each one of our searches.
Yeah, and I want to hone in on that presentation we share to them. So we sit up front. First part of the process is sitting with the client, discussing the role, career trajectory, the company, the culture, trying to understand everything, answering the first 20 questions that a candidate would ask them as well if the role was flipped and the candidate was interviewing the client. And we try to address every single one of those questions in this presentation that we call Position Marketing Presentation. And we take that, and it's a third-party web-hosted page that tracks engagement. So we send it to them with multimedia links, YouTube videos, information about the location where the company is. And the more we see a candidate interact with that presentation, the higher that candidate goes on our list, our lead list, if you will. So the more engagement means it's a warmer lead. And I think that helps us to avoid the full cold calling rigmarole, as you say, and reach out to people that are actually engaging with this position already. And you can call them up or message them and say, we see you have some interest in this. Let's have a discussion and see if there's anything else we can share about it.
Correct. Just as an anecdote, I had a mentor many, many years ago in this industry say to me one time, my mom has to call me 2 or 3 times to get me to call her back. And so the idea that we took that outdated process out of kind of the approach we take, not only are we saving ourselves time, but we're getting through to the folks who we want to talk to most more efficiently than anybody we work against.
So there is a time and place for recruiting active candidates. Those are the, mid-tier, early career roles. You need a lot of them in a short period of time. You're posting 10 plus roles at once. There's obviously a need for that, and there always will be. But where the passive candidate recruitment comes into play is a higher level of technicality in the role, a higher level of professionalism, or you're looking for someone that's going to be in the role 10 plus years, and that loyalty factor is really important. Or all the way up at executive level. You don't see a lot of companies posting C-level roles online.
No, you sure hope they don't.
Yeah.
That would mean the TA team's a little bit unstrategic, if you will.
Yes, well said.
No, the other time you would find an active candidate to be the right approach is in a unique location position. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes you get clients looking to fill a role in a pretty remote location with a pretty finite experience necessary. It's at moments like that when you need to start kind of thinking outside the box and, at times maybe be willing to take what you can get, which is not necessarily how we want to tell our clients we work. But, when you get in very, very tight aperture roles, sometimes you just have to trust that the right person's going to be out there, whether or not they check all of the boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. In closing, at the end of the day, there's a very large difference between a passive candidate and an active candidate and the approach taken to recruit those types of candidates or those profiles of candidates. And I think it is a lot about selling the opportunity, actively going out and approaching people that are gainfully employed, happily employed in their current organization, but would consider open ear to another opportunity if it's approached correctly. And what we've done over our career is figure out how to bend their ear, get that first impression, and then from there take that opportunity to sell them on this opportunity.
Organizations that don't sell their company in the marketplace have missed out on half the opportunity to hire good talent. Mm-hmm. The name of the business is talent acquisition, not talent deterrent. And the often most overlooked part of that process is finding common ground and talking about things that maybe inside or outside of work might get you motivated in the morning. Finding that common point that makes the hard part of changing a job that much less stressful.
Yeah, and it's breaking through the noise too. As we discussed, you have to have a technology forward approach. I would argue that, myself, you probably get 5 recruiter outreaches a day from other recruiters recruiting you to recruiting firms.
Yep.
And it's just noise, and it's all similar outreach approaches. And you have to differentiate yourself in how you approach these candidates, how you sell them on the opportunity, and build a consultative relationship with the candidate and say, if it's not this one, we look forward to working with you on the next one.
Yeah, there's an inherent trust between yourself and the candidate that must be developed. And pretty quickly when you hand that candidate off to your client, that trust needs to carry through, because at the end of the day, not only are you talking about things that are reflective in your resume, but also of who you are and how you go about approaching your job day to day. But you're joining an organization potentially that is looking for like-minded individuals. So finding ways to pair your experience, your ethos, and personal beliefs with an organization takes a lot more than just putting out a PDF and hoping that they respond.
Yeah, you bring a good point, which is making sure there's that emotional connection and cultural connection. I think that's probably one of the largest selling points for recruiting is we make sure that there is that technical fit so that the TA, the HR, the head executives can focus on that culture fit.
Well said.
Yeah. Appreciate you tuning in to Talent Takes, episode 3, focusing on passive versus active candidates. Thank you, Nick, for joining and telling me a bit more about this topic and reviewing it with me.
Thanks for having me.